أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So let's start today with the Surah of Quran, and today we will recite, you choose. Can you tell me? I can't hear all of you, but maybe I can hear you telling me we should recite Surah An-Nas. Shall we do that? Okay, let's start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق الرسول الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. We now recite a Marthia, and I'm going by all these messages you send me. So one of you have said that you like Marthia number 14, which is Dream of Ibrahim. So if you've got your books with you, it's on page 19. Recite it with me. Shall we start? Let's go. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. It started with a prophet and ended with Imam. Oh Ibrahim, at least your eyes were blindfolded. Come look at Hussein when Ali Akbar fell. And Ali Asghar, who was in his arms, the arrow tore through whilst Hussein looked on. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. It started with a prophet and ended with Imam. Ibrahim, come look, when Hussein left the camp, Sakina clung on to Zuljanah's leg. Oh Zuljanah, don't take my dad, whoever's gone doesn't come back. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. It started with a prophet and ended with Imam. Ibrahim, come see, when my Imam got off the horse onto the arrows, going into Sajda and praising his Rabb, fulfilling his vow of saving Islam. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. Dream of Ibrahim, sacrifice of Hussein. It started with a prophet and ended with Imam. We have a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. So we've been looking at Surah Yusuf, and I hope you remember those 5 words from ayah number 3. Nahnu, we, naqussu, we relate to you, we tell you, alayka, to you, ahsan al-qasas, the best of stories. And I told you qasas was a generational story passed down from generation to generation to generation, always having lessons in it. So we started off looking at the dream of Prophet Yusuf, if you remember. The 11 stars, the moon and the sun and the moon. Okay, they were doing sajda to him. Then we saw how his brothers took him and put him in the well, into the jub. You remember, it's not a normal well, but a hole where the water goes either into the river or the sea, and it also has a ledge. Then we find how the caravan kidnapped him. They sold him as a slave. He's accused wrongly and he's put into prison. Now in prison, yesterday we looked at how he interpreted the dreams of the baker and the juice maker, and he told them exactly what would happen. And we left it where Jibreel comes, asks him to do dua, remember, in the name of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, and he would be freed. Now see what happens. So just a little recap on yesterday. The juice maker tells the king of Yusuf, do you remember? He tells, I know someone, I know that I can find I know the interpretation of your dreams. I know what your dreams mean. Because before him in ayah 44 of Surah Yusuf, his advisors tell him, this is adghatul alham. These are confused dreams. How are we supposed to know what they mean? Now, the juice maker goes to prison. When Prophet Yusuf sees the juice maker, it was like he saw a long lost friend. Oh, hello, what happened? And the juice maker told him, Yusuf, Ayyuha Siddiq, oh, the most honest man I know, Aftina, tell us, for all of us, tell us, fi sab'i baqaratin simanin ya'kuluhunna sab'un ijafun, 7 thin cows eating 7 fat cows, wa sab'i sumbulatin khudrin wa ukhra yabisatun, and then 7 green sheaves of wheat, and then we see, or ears of wheat, and then some that are dry, 7 that are dry. لعلي أرجع إلى الناس لعلهم يعلمون. Tell me so I can go back to people and tell them what this dream means. Prophet Yusuf replied straight away. He says, you will have a good 7 years when you will be able to do a lot of work. Like you'll be able to farm and things will be really good. The weather will be really good. But then you will have 7 years of drought. So in those 7 years of good years, you must save the harvest because you will need your stores. And then after those 7 years, that means after 14 years, there will be 1 year when people will get lots of rain. There'll be lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, and they'll be able to make oil out of them, and they'll be able to make juice from the crops. So this is Surah number 12, Surah Yusuf, ayah 47 to 49. So that'll be an awesome year. So he's talking about 15 years. 7 good, 7 drought, and then 1 extra good. Okay, so he's telling him that. So the juice maker runs back to the king. You know, he wants to make sure, he's the one who pours out the juice to the king, and he wants to make sure that the king really likes him. And the king told him, how did you know all this? Where did you find this out? So he said, well, there was this person in prison with me called Yusuf, and he's the one who told me this. So the king told him, bring him to me. So he goes to Yusuf, Prophet Yusuf, and he says, the king's asking to see you. And in ayah 50, Prophet Yusuf tells him, Irji ila rabbika, go back to your king. Tell him I will only come if my name is cleared, because I was accused wrongly. I want my name to be cleared. I don't want to come out and people think I'm guilty of something I didn't do. I didn't do that. Okay, so the juice maker runs back to the king and he says, he doesn't want to come out of prison. Really? Doesn't want to come out of prison? Why? Well, he wants his name cleared because he was put into prison for the wrong reason. He didn't do anything wrong. The king was really anxious to see him because this dream was really bothering him. So he went back into his records all those years ago to find out exactly what happened. He went to all the people and finally he got them to admit that Yusuf, Prophet Yusuf, was completely innocent. So his name is cleared. Now, there we are. His name is all cleared. And now he tells the juice maker, go, i'tuni bihim, ayah 54. Bring him to me. And then he tells him, istakhlisu nafsi, I will keep him for myself. I'm not going to let any of these aziz, any of these noble people looked after him. I want him for myself. He sounds such an intelligent man. When Prophet Yusuf came to him and the king interviewed him and talked to him, he realized that this was a really intelligent, trustworthy, righteous, awesome human being. He called him Makinun Amin. He called him like, you're really trustworthy, you're really awesome. And he said, look, I want you to be my right-hand man. I want you to be mine, like you will be my personal advisor. Prophet Yusuf tells him, this is ayah 55, appoint me to oversee all the farmland, all the agriculture, the treasures of Egypt, because I am Hafidhul Alim. I am somebody who will look after it, I'm trustworthy, and I know what I'm talking about. The king accepts, and he makes Prophet Yusuf the Minister of Agriculture and Food Distribution. And that at that time was the highest post you could have besides the king, because that's what everybody needed, food. He gave him, now the way to do this was he gave him his ring and his drinking cup. That meant that he was officially chosen by the king. So when at that time you were given the king's ring and the king's drinking cup, my goodness, that meant you were really, really important. And Allah says, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. This is ayah 56. Thus we gave Yusuf this amazing power in the land. And he got his honor back because everybody knew that he wasn't guilty and he was put into prison for the wrong reasons. Now for the next 7 years, now remember, he was the Minister for Agriculture and Food Distribution. So for the next 7 years, when they had a good harvest, Prophet Yusuf made a law. And the law said that the wheat farmers would sell all their surplus wheat to the king's treasure. And they would buy it at the market rate. So the farmers didn't have to lie, didn't have to cheat. They knew this was a fair deal. They were going to get a market price. So what they did was everything that was left over, they took it to Prophet Yusuf. And he built a whole load, acres and acres of storehouses, like loads of storehouses, where they would put the dried wheat in there. They stored it and they kept it there. Now that took a lot of resources. And everybody was thinking, what is he doing? Just because of a dream? But the king knew that he was right. The king believed in him, that he was a righteous man. 7 years is a long time. It's not an easy time. Well, those 7 years were good. And Prophet Yusuf stuck by it. He made sure he bought all that wheat and put it in the storehouses. After 7 years, my goodness, the rain stopped. There was famine. That means people were really, really hungry. And everybody, even around Egypt, towns that were around Egypt, Palestine, nobody had food. There was a massive famine. There was no rain everywhere. And everybody was coming to buy their rations in Egypt, buy their food in Egypt. So whatever they had, they would come and sell it in Egypt, and they would get food back. And this is what they did. And they were surprised because the people in Egypt before, those in charge, were always corrupt people. But suddenly they find that this system is so efficient. This system is so right because it was managed by Yusuf. Just one person. Look how he can change a whole economy. Prophet Yusuf. When one person is righteous somewhere, they can change everything. If you're in a household and you're right, you can change things too. So say you're sitting on the dinner table, just an example. Say you're all sitting on the dinner table and suddenly somebody starts to gossip. You don't have to say anything because you can't tell adults, oh, you're not supposed to do that because that's rude. You should just get up. And if they ask you, why did you get up? They'll come and ask you where you are. And you say, well, I can't sit somewhere where there's gossip because that goes into the food and then I eat the food and then it affects me. So it just takes one person to change everyone. Look at Prophet Yusuf, what he did. Anyway. So now, Prophet Yaqub is in Canaan, right? Canaan is in Palestine. He's there. He takes all his sons together and he says, I have heard that there is good wheat and it's still sold in Egypt. Egypt has wheat. We've all run out of food. And the man in charge is a really righteous man who gives what is due. He doesn't cheat anyone. So go to him and buy wheat from him. He shall be good to you, inshallah. I don't know whether Prophet Yaqub knew this was his son or not. None of us know, but we definitely know that his sons did not know. So he did not send Binyamin, remember? Because he'd already sent Yusuf once and lost Yusuf. So he didn't send Binyamin, only the 10 brothers, and he sent them. So the caravan, the people, the 10 brothers from Canaan traveled for 18 days. And they found themselves in front of Prophet Yusuf. But they did not know that this was their brother. I'm going to stop here because we're going to continue tomorrow. So today you're going to remember what happened. See what happens? This is trust in God. And throughout the surah, Allah says, he was somebody who was trustworthy, who was God conscious. Allah calls him muhsineen, one who does ihsan, one who does good. Now, why did he want that position? Why did he say, I wanted that position? Because he knew that if the the wheat, or if the food wasn't managed properly, then lots and lots of people would die. Lots of children would die in the famine. So he wanted to make sure that he was doing good for humanity. Not because he wanted a position, not because he wanted to be the greatest person in Egypt besides a king, but because he knew that this had to be managed well, had to be managed fairly, so that human beings would not find it difficult during the drought. So our intentions for anything, even if when we're looking for a high-powered job, they're supposed to be very, very clear. Not one of the skewed intentions that I want to cheat people and I want to make lots of money. That doesn't work that way. Okay. But for today, now we're going to go back to Karbala. Okay. Oh, and today, 2 awesome young boys. Really, really awesome young boys. So these were the sons of Sayyidah Zainab. So she had married somebody called Abdullah. Incidentally, he was the first Muslim born in Africa. Do you know that? In Ethiopia, because his parents had emigrated over there. So Abdullah's mom was called Asma and dad was called Ja'far, known as Ja'far al-Tayyar. Anyway, they had 6 children. Abdullah and Zainab, Sayyidah Zainab, had 6 children. There was Muhammad al-Akbar, there was Own, there was Muhammad al-Askar, Abbas, Ali, and Kulthum. But we're going to talk about the middle 2, the second and the third, Awn and Muhammad al-Askar. Now, Hazrat Abdullah was not very well when they left Medina to go to Karbala. Remember, Sayyidah Zainab had always told her husband, when she got married, she was allowed to give him some conditions. It's called mahar. And in her mahar, she said, when my brother goes anywhere, I want to go with him. And he said, yeah, that's fine. So as soon as Imam Hussein said he was leaving Medina, she said, I'm going to go with him. And Hazrat Abdullah said, I can't come. But he tells Imam Hussein, I'm going to give you my 2 sons to represent me, Awn and Muhammad. So on the night of Ashura, I need you to close your eyes. I need you to imagine. It's the night of Ashura. It's dark. Everybody is thinking about the next day. All the tents, there's somebody reading Quran, there's people reading Dua, there are people who are doing istighfar, there are people who are praying, and then there's also moms who are talking to their kids and saying, be strong tomorrow, be brave as you're supposed to be. But in one tent, there was Sayyidah Zainab, and she was telling her 2 children, Muhammad and Awn, tomorrow be brave, fight bravely. And then she told them, if you find yourself near the water, then think about those who are still thirsty here, because your little Sakina is still thirsty. Ali Askar is still thirsty. So just think about them. When it was the morning of Ashura, Ali Akbar gave azan. Did you know that? And she takes both her sons and she goes to Imam Hussein and she says, please allow my sons to go and fight. They're brave. They've learned how to fight. He looked at those 2 young boys, just said, okay. He didn't know how to say no. He didn't want to say yes. And he told their mom, Sayyidah Zainab, pray for them, because a mom's du'as are always heard. Just pray for them. So Imam Hussein and Hazrat Abbas put the armor on them. And the armor is so big, it's sort of trailing on the ground. They give them swords, and the swords are so big. Imam Hussein just sits down on the floor. Because when he looks at them from the floor, they look a little bit big. But when he stands up, they look so little. There were tears in his eyes. He didn't know what to do. So we're told that twice he sat down, twice he stood up, because he didn't know how to look at them. The swords were dragging, they were little. Holding their hands, Imam Hussein and Hazrat Abbas take them out to the battlefield. Now remember, they were cruel, mean adults who were fighting on the other side. They helped them get onto their horses, and they were directing them. This is what you do. Go on the other side. This is how you fight. Omar Saad was watching, and he said, who are these wonderful 2 young boys? They look like the shining moon. And somebody said, they are the sons of Zainab. And he said, she must love her brother loads, really loads. Even these men, they didn't have any mercy in their hearts. they surrounded these two boys and they pelted them with whatever they had. When the two boys fell, they said, Assalamu alayka ya ammu, peace be upon you, our uncle. Imam ran towards them. He carried one in one arm and the other in the other arm. Their feet were dragging on the ground. He placed the two boys in the tent. We couldn't find their mom. Where was she? He was trying to look for Sayyidah Zainab. We couldn't find her. She was on her musalla. She recited 2 rakat salah and she was saying, Ya Allah, accept my sons. They fought for the truth. Accept them from me. She never cried for her sons. She always cried for her brother. But when she got to Medina, she sat on the steps of her house, doorstep of her house. Her husband Abdullah came to the house. He had gone out and he came back and he said, Oh lady, can I help you? She removed, it was like a mask that we wear. She wore a niqab. When she moved it, she said, Didn't you recognize me? I am the mother of your children. He cried. And when she went into their bedrooms and she saw their empty beds, that's the first time she said, Ya Aoun, Ya Muhammad, how I miss you. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Say'alamuna alladhina dhalamu ayyamun qalibiyyan qalibun. Let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq, the ability to be able to take lessons from the Quran, to take lessons from Karbala, and to always be Husseini. So let's recite a Noha, and then we recite the Dua for protection, and then we will recite the Ziyarah of Abu Abdullah. Again, I go by all these messages you've sent me, and I'm just going by the most of them. And you've told me you like Noha number 12, which is on page 16. The desert is so quiet. So with your right hand, beat your chest and matam, and let's read together. The desert is so quiet, there's a deathly calm. The desert is so quiet, there's a deathly calm. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. I hear that they gave you an arrow when all you asked for was some water. Oh, Asghar, you were bathed in blood. Oh, Asghar, you were bathed in blood. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. The desert is so quiet, there's a deathly calm. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. I only want to ask one question. To the waters of River Furat, couldn't you spare some water for my son? Couldn't you spare some water for my son? The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. The desert is so quiet, there's a deathly calm. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. Come, let me change your blood-soaked clothes. Let me cradle you in my arms. What did they do to my Mujahid? What did they do to my Mujahid? The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. The desert is so quiet, there's a deathly calm. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. I see your radiant face, the thirst on your lips. I couldn't even give you any milk. All my life I'll never forget. All my life I'll never forget. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. The desert is so quiet, there's a deathly calm. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. Oh Muslims, when you see infants being killed and denied water, remember my Asghar, go to their aid. Remember my Asghar, go to their aid. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. The desert is so quiet, there's a deathly calm. The night is so dark, don't be scared, Asghar. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Let's read the dua for protection. لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاتمة، المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. في أمان الله قريب. إن شاء الله. See you again tomorrow.